لا سيما بقية الله الأرض الأرضين حجة ابن الحسن روحي وأرواحنا لتراب مقدمه الفداء الذي بيمنه رزق الوراء وبوجوده ثبتت الأرض والسماء. It is my humble appearance in front of the ulama who are sitting here in front of the scholars, and I do not wish to speak for too long, but just a broader message in English as we are here together to remember Marhooma, the one who was a lover of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu salam within inside of her life. And the reason to why we can see that is that today her children, her grandchildren are gathered today within inside of this majlis, inside of this sitting, and they are honoring her life and honoring the life that she lived with the dhikr of Ali Muhammad alayhi salatu salam. Please say salawat all together, please. And the reality is that those who have left us from this dunya, their eyes have opened up to a reality, their eyes have opened up to something that they would not have witnessed with inside of this world, and that is the reality of barzakh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut, that every single soul in this dunya shall taste death. Whether that be you're from Solihull, whether that means you're from Tamworth, whether you are an antagonist, whether you are an atheist, whichever faction, whichever city, whichever area you belong to, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut, that everybody will taste this reality one day. Whether you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not, whether you can prove the Akhtar alayhi salam, whether you can prove God to exist or not, whatever the case may be, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promise stands inside of this world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promise is never going to be false, and that is that every single soul shall taste death. My dear mu'mineen, mu'minat who are in this majlis today, death is a universal law. It does not look at an alim, it does not look at somebody who's a mujtahid, it does not look at the Prophet, it does not look at the Akhtar alayhi salam. Every single soul is going to be tasting death in this world, and this is why Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu salam, he says in a hadith, An-nasu yanamun, that people in this world, they are in a slumber, they are in a sleep, they are in a deep sleep in this world, whilst they are living in this world. فَإِذَا مَاتُوا إِنْتَبَهُوا, when they taste death, they are going to wake up from this slumber that they have been in their life. They are going to wake up from this sleep one day eventually. And the truth of the reality is that we need to see, are we living in a life of slumber? Are we living in a life of sleep where we do not recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within inside of our life? Or are we living a life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked us to live like? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala summarizes our life in a short ayah, and I'm just going to mention this and a few of the points and I'll end my short talk. He summarizes our life with inside of one ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَيْفَ تَكْفُرُونَ بِاللَّهِ, that how do you reject Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How do you reject God? وَكُنْتُمْ أَمْوَاتًا فَأَحْيَاكُمْ, where once upon a time you were of something that you cannot even mention. You were something that was not worthy of mentioning at one point. And then I gave you life, and then I took life away from you. And then when I took life away from you, I resurrected you back into the courtyard of God. This process has been going on for billions of years. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that after witnessing all of these deaths, when death is surrounding you, when you see the process of life from every corner of this world, how do you still reject Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How do you reject God itself? And many people may ignore it for most of their life, but the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam have told us that death is following you similar to how your shadow is following you. When you look at your shadow, it's never going to leave you. It's always following you everywhere you go. So dear mu'mineen, mu'minat, we have to understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promise is something that nobody can ever escape, which is why our Imam Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he says in Dua Kumail, he says, وَلَا يُمْكِنُ الْفِرَارُ مِنْ حُكُومَتِكَ. It's impossible to escape from the realms of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's impossible to escape from God. You cannot go hide somewhere within inside of a mountain. You cannot go hide in a valley. You cannot go hide anywhere in this world and escape from the governance and the might of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, each and every single one of us, whether that be this week, whether that be next week, next month, or even the next 5 minutes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the capability to take your life away from you, this life that was presented to you. But the question is, why are people afraid of death? Why are people afraid of death? If maut or death is haqq, if it is truth, and it is something that is going to encompass my life, and the angel of death is going to take my soul away from me one day, why am I afraid of it? The answer to this is the Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salam, they say, Al-kha'inu kha'ifun, that the one who is due to be prosecuted, he is in fear. For example, somebody commits a crime, that person is going to be living in fear. Why? Because he's in fear of being prosecuted. People in this dunya are also in fear of prosecution of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is why they fear death. And I'll give a short example so that everybody can understand what I'm speaking about. If you place a sellotape on the palm of your hand and you take it off, you're not going to be in fear because it's not attached to anything. But if you place a sellotape on the back of your hand and you try to rip it off really quickly, you realize that you've got to take it off slowly so it doesn't hurt you. Similar to that, because our souls are attached to this dunya, because we are so attached to materials of this world, we do not want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take us away from this world. We do not want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take us away from the materials of this world, which is why we are afraid of death, we are afraid of our akhirah, because we are in fear of our prosecution. We are in fear that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to take accountability of my actions that I've done in this world. Therefore, it's highly necessary that we seek accountability of our a'mal, we seek accountability of the life that we are living. Believe me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you an opportunity to live in this world, and this opportunity can be taken at any moment. If you take it for granted, your life will continue on and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will close the doors. And that is when Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam says that your eyes will open into a reality, an eternal reality, in fact. And before you do that, you have to see what you are taking into the hereafter. If you have a look at the example of Marhooma Maghfur, whom we are taking this majlis for, I personally have visited her house before, and I've lived there. And I can tell you that not a moment of her life did she live without having iman within inside of herself, without having an attachment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She had the Quran in her life, she had the love of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salam. She had direction within inside of her life, she had respect for anybody who would walk inside of her house. She was following the values of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salam within inside of her life. That was the life she had led. And what had happened when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took her life a couple of nights ago? Today, her grandchildren are sitting here and they are doing the dhikr of Ali Muhammad alayhi salatu salam. There are ulama within inside of this majlis. There are mu'mineen who are in this majlis. These are the blessings when somebody leads a correct life, when somebody leads a life with direction. But somebody who's leading a life without any direction, who does not have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within inside of his life, that person is soon either going to fall face flat on the earth, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to take his life and he's going to open his eyes to a new reality. And I'd like to share poetry by Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu salam. And it's a very beautiful poetry. He says, Ya man bidunyahu ishtaghal, qad gharrahu tulul amal, al-mawtu ya'ti baghtatan wal-qabru sanduqul amal. He says that, oh the one, Ya man bidunyahu ishtaghal, oh the one who is so busy in the materials of his world, oh the one who likes to make plans for the daily basis. I'm going to go ahead, go to work, come back at 5 o'clock, I'm going to rest, I'm going to see my children, I'm going to go out with my friends, for example. قَدْ غَرَّهُ طُولُ الْأَمَلِ. And on the side, he likes to make plans for the future. 5 years down the line I'm going to get a mortgage, 10 years down the line I'm going to take my wife somewhere, for example, whatever the case is. Imam says, Al-mawtu ya'ti baghtatan. When death will arrive, it's going to take you suddenly. It's not going to give you a memo. It's not going to give you a reminder or an alert on your phone saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes to take your life. Imam says, Al-mawtu ya'ti baghtatan. When death arrives, it's going to take you within milliseconds. And then Imam says, Wal-qabru sanduqul amal. Your grave is the treasure box of the actions that you have acquired in this world. Whatever actions you have gathered in this dunya, your akhirah, your grave is going to be that treasure box. And tomorrow you're going to open that treasure box and look at the a'mal and the actions you've done within inside of this world. So therefore, we have to always be prepared for this reality, that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to take my life away, what condition am I living in today that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to take my life away from me, either in the next, or in the near future, or in the far future. Somebody came to Marhooma Ayatollah Mirza Shirazi, and he asked him a very interesting question. And this question resonates with all of us as well. He asked him that if Malikul Maut, or the angel of death, had to come to you and tell you that he's going to take your life, for example, in the next 2 days, what is going to be the response of many people? Marhooma Ayatollah Mirza Shirazi, he says that from the day that I wore this libas, or from the day that I started wearing a turban as a cleric, I have never ever betrayed the door of Fatima al-Zahra sallallahu alayha. He says, I've never betrayed the door of Bibi sallallahu alayha within inside of my life. Ever since the day I was sworn in to become a guide, a religious guide for the people, I never betrayed the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Whatever criteria they laid down for me in my life, I followed that criteria. But the question for me and you is the same. If the angel of death had to come and tell you that, Fulan, I'm going to come and take your life away from you in this week, you can imagine the scenario many people would be in. People will start to pay back whatever they owe to other people. People will start to ask forgiveness from other people. Certain people will go into sajda. Certain people will go into ruku'. Certain people will ask forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They will be in a rush. They will leave their jobs. They will leave their dunya. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to take our lives away from us, in what condition are we living in today? Are we prepared for that reality that every single one of us believes in? Recite a salawat all together, please. The final part that I would just like to mention is that what can we do for those who have left this world already? My grandmother has left this dunya, for example. My aunt has left this dunya. My cousin has left this world. What can I do for the one that's left this world? The Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, إِنَّ أَرْوَاحَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ تَأْتِي كُلَّ جُمْعَةٍ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ الدُّنْيَا. That surely the souls of all of the mu'mineen and those who have left this world, they come back into this world every Friday, and then from the skies they descend down upon this world, and they come to the doors of their children, they come to the doors of their offspring. يُنَادِي كُلَّ وَاحِدٍ مِّنْهُمْ. Each and every single one of them, they call out to the next of kin. They call out to those people who have been left behind in this world. بِصَوْتٍ حَزِينٍ بَاكِينٍ. Whilst they are in a state of crying and in a state of grief, they are calling out to who? Ya ahli wa ya wuldi. That all my family, all my children. Wa ya abi wa ya ummi. Some children will come back to their fathers and mothers. Oh my father, oh my mother. اعطفوا علينا يرحمكم الله. Have mercy on our souls, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can have mercy upon you when you leave this world. And then the Rasulullah says, اعطفوا علينا بدرهم. Then use this little bit of wealth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to you and distribute it for the sake of our souls, for the sake of us. So the message that I want to make out of this, is that it's not necessary that you have to open up an orphanage for the marhoom. It's not necessary that you go and give all of your wealth fi sabilillah for the person who has left this world. No, just holding a majlis as small as this, can benefit the life, the soul of the marhoom. Just holding a dhikr of Ali Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam can be the reason for the forgiveness of the marhoom. Giving sadaqah fi sabilillah, helping those who are going through difficulties in Gaza and Lebanon, that is also doing a niyat for them, is also a source of forgiveness for the marhoom as well, or the marhoom. And the final part that I would like to mention, if you cannot give anything financially, it's not necessary that you give something out of your pocket. Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, Man qara inna inzalnah عند قبر مؤمن سبع مرات, that whoever recites inna anzalnah 7 times near the grave of a mu'min, and it's not necessary that you're near the grave of a mu'min. If you recite 7 times inna anzalnah, that surah, for the sake of a marhooma or a marhoom, Imam said, بعث الله إليه ملكا, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends an angel down to that grave, يعبد الله عند قبره, that angel worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala near that grave, ويكتب له وللميت ثواب ما يعمل ذلك الملك, and he writes down the thawab of every single action of this angel that he has done near that grave, just by reciting 7 times inna anzalna. It's not necessary that you take out a whole fortune for an orphanage. You can recite 7 times inna anzalna for that marhoom or that marhooma. Therefore, dear mu'mineen, mu'minat, we have to be very serious with our lives. And I'd like to send a message out to the youth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you an opportunity to live in this world and to be tested and to be seen that who exactly do you want to be in the hereafter. Whatever you will be in the hereafter is a direct reflection of what you are in this world. So make sure that you lead a life of purity, a life that is for the sake of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Recognize who you are. Recognize that you are a Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. And recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has favored the deen of Islam upon you. Always remember that Allah has favored you to be a Muslim. He did not allow you to be an atheist. He did not allow you to be somebody who's a non-Muslim, a Christian, somebody who's not even affiliated with the deen. Rather, He made you amongst the Shias of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu salam. And finally, I would like to mention that the one who has left this world, Marhooma, she was a lover of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. As our family, we have a pride in the fact that we love Ali Muhammad alayhi salatu salam. And believe me, if this Masaib that has been recited in this majlis, if this was to be recited in front of her, then you would see that the tears would be pouring down from her eyes. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, Sallallahu alayka ya Ibn Rasulillah, Assalamu alayka ya Madloom, ya Gharib, ya Adshan. Once when you go to Karbala, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you all the tawfiq to go to Karbala and visit the ziyarah of Abi Abdullah alayhi salam. If you go to Karbala, you'll realize that from the shrine of Abul Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam, on the right side is Kafful Yameen, and on the left side is Kafful Yasar. The left arm of Abul Fadl al-Abbas is on one side, and the right arm of Abul Fadl al-Abbas is on the right side. Which tells us one thing and one matter only, that when Abul Fadl al-Abbas went to the river Furat, when he went to go get the water for the Ahl Haram, he gave everything, every part of his body to bring water back to the camps of Abu Abdullah Hussein alayhi salam. And when he went to the Furat, we all know the narrations, he takes the water inside of his hands and he looks at the water and he has blood dripping from his lips, and he says, Ya nafsu min ba'd al-Husayn huni, that how are you going to live on without bringing water to the camps of Abu Abdullah? Are you going to stay loyal to Hussein and bring this water back to the camps? Or are you going to sit here and drink whilst your Mawla is thirsty? Abul Fadl Abbas alayhi salam, as he was riding back from the Furat, and this is from the poetry of Bibi Baleen Salamullah alayha. She says that, "Oh my son Abbas, I heard that when you were riding back from the camps they had cut your arms." And she says, "Ya Abbas," this is while she was in Baqi, she was sitting and she had made 4 graves for her children. She had made 4 graves, and on top of all of these graves she made the grave of Abul Fadl Abbas alayhi salam. She says, "Oh my Abbas, I heard that when you were riding back from the Furat, they had struck your head with a steel lance and they had cut both of your arms off." She says that, "Oh Abbas, I know that when you were riding back from the Furat, they had fired an arrow into your eye and you could not see anymore. But when they had fired the arrow within inside of the mashq, that is when you had lost hope to go back towards the camps. Ya Aba Abdullah, over here you had come to the help of Abul Fadl Abbas. When you had come, you had taken Abbas into your lap. But may I be sacrificed for the time where Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam remained alone on the battlefield of Karbala. He looked towards his right, he looked towards his left, and he said, Aina al-Habib, Aina al-Burayr, Aina al-Zuhair, where are my companions? Stand up to help me, O my companions. My salams be upon Hussein, alladhi qataluhu atshana, the one who was killed thirsty on the plains of Karbala. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Assalamu ala al-Hussein, alladhi qataluhu atshana bi Karbala. At the end, I would like to do a short tawassul to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. As the Marhooma Maghfoor who has left this world, she left as an ashiq and a lover of Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salatu wassalam. Ya Abu Abdullah, الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا. Everybody all together please. يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم كن لوليك ومتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة مع الصلوات.